Hey everybody, this is Colleen Moore. I am an independent sales rep for the Avon Company. Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm kind of sliding down here a little bit. Today, or actually tonight, this is later on at night, I'm not going to be talking to you about Avon products. We're now facing isolation, I guess you could say, or just practicing caution is more, I guess, more the words that I'm trying to say. And the kids are off school, and they're home. They're not used to being home. Parents, especially mothers, aren't used to having their kids at home 24/7, and they don't know what to do with them. I had a couple people, especially my future daughter-in-law, express how helpful I was in a very short video I did just not too long ago, some different things for the kids, and it got me thinking. And since I was a preschool teacher, that was quite a long time ago, probably, I'm going to say 15, no, I guess it would have to be more than that, about 20 years ago. I was a preschool teacher. And I was a preschool teacher for 9 years. So 29 years ago, I started teaching 4-year-old preschoolers. And I have some, I think, some great ideas that you can do with your children. Some of them does involve maybe buying some things from Walmart to accommodate this, but a lot of it has to do with things that you have around your home. And I do have it on a piece of paper, so bear with me as I'm looking, because there actually, I have, oops, I'm losing my paper here, about 13 different things. And then I'll have to tell you a little bit more later. I looked up a few more things, so I have 2 pieces of paper that has ideas on it. One of the great things we did as at the preschool was it was almost like what's that game called, where you jump on the dots. I'm sorry, it just totally went out of my head. But you take construction paper and the different colored construction paper, and depending on the age of your child, just place them on the floor. Actually, I when I had my grandsons over and I was teaching them, I used to throw them all around the living room, and then I would holler out a color, red, and he would have to go stand on the red square. And in staying in conjunction with this, you can also put numbers, on the different colored construction paper, put numbers on it, put letters on it, and like I said, depending on your child's age, you can put the word red, blue, green. And believe it or not, this simple game is actually a teaching tool, and it's fun. The kids love it. A lot of times when my grandsons used to come over, it wasn't school time, so they asked to play the game, and we would get the cards out because I had them when I would teach them the things that they needed to learn for school. So that's one thing you can do. And like I said, depending on the age of your child, maybe if, like my younger grandson, I have actually 5 grandchildren, and they range. I have, my oldest is 20. My next grandson, he is going to be 16. Then I have a 13-year-old granddaughter, and then we jump all the way down to a 2-year-old, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe he will be 6 months old. Don't quote me on that. Months just seem to, fly by. He's already crawling, and it just seems impossible that he's moving around as easily as he is right now, getting into things. So like with the 2-year-old, you may want to just do the colors, and they catch on very quickly. You may not think that they would, but if you show them, if you put them on the floor and you yell red, and then you take his hand and you run over to the red square, and then stay there and yell like blue, and then find the blue square, and you go, take his hand and go there. They catch on very quickly, trust me. Another thing I had mentioned before, if you have board games lying around, Candyland teaches them colors. Trying to think, you probably, most people do have some, games, but card games are one. Maybe you wouldn't want to do that with a 2-year-old, but like I said, this is all, taken with a grain of salt, the age of your child. Another one we used to play at the preschool is What's Missing. And we would get a tray and we would put maybe randomly 10 different items on the tray. And we tell them to look. We'll give them a couple seconds to look, and then they have to close their eyes. And then you take away one thing. And then you ask them, when you tell them to open up their eyes, what's missing? And it teaches them to become aware. Motor skills. Those are the big, these games are geared to the motor skills. So, and I'm trying to think, I know there are other games and they're totally going out of my head. Like I said, it's been 20 years. I quit when my first grandson was born, and he's going to be 20, so that's how I'm dating it. 20 years ago, I was teaching young children. One thing, and I do this now with my 2-year-old grandson, is I make a tent. He's not over as often as my granddaughter was, but I make a tent. And what I do is I don't know if some of you parents remember doing this when you were kids. Take a blanket, put it over a couple chairs, and you kind of make like a little hiding place, like I said, a tent. And I would give them snacks, and we'd go inside the tent to eat. It was almost like going outside to have an outdoor picnic, and they loved it. I would set the tent up close to the TV, and I would put on, a child's cartoon or whatever it is, and we'd sit in this tent and we'd eat our lunch or we'd eat a snack, and they'd watch TV, and they absolutely loved it. The same thing with reading a book. We would go in this tent, and it would be like our little private corner. So that's an idea you can do. Now, maybe not for the 2-year-old, but for your older children, maybe this is the time to reminisce and go through old pictures. I brought out, it wasn't too long ago, I brought out pictures, or my picture books, my snapshots. And my granddaughter loves to go through them. I have them put away so she doesn't just go and get them and look through them. But I know when I do bring them out, she spends hours looking through them. Well, maybe not hours, but maybe almost an hour looking through all the pictures. And she has questions, about, who was this and what were you doing here? And take a moment and reminisce with your children, some old pictures. Let me see here. Let me go down my list so I don't forget anything. Some of the older kids, you can do some science experiments, which even some of the younger kids, you would be surprised how intrigued they would be for some of this stuff. One we liked to do at the preschool was a volcano. And a volcano is so easy to do. It's going to make a mess. So, be prepared. Either do it in a bathtub or in a sink or somewhere. Maybe you're going to do this where you have a container to contain this, because when you, I'll tell you what to do, and then you can decide how you're going to collect this. But you would put simply baking soda in a bottle or a glass, just a simple glass, and then add soda, and it just foams right up, and it's like, this is the volcano going, and the kids love it. It takes a couple seconds, but when each one tries to do it, they always seem to enjoy that. And being that Easter's right around the corner, you can still go to the stores. I know Easter stuff is there. Keller Easter eggs. And you don't have to wait for Easter to do that. You can make egg salad, creamed eggs. I know they're called deviled eggs, but my husband doesn't like that word, deviled eggs. So, we call them creamed eggs. And, instead of using the kits that they do, use the old-fashioned method. Get the food coloring. And then you can teach them how to blend colors. Use just the red, the blue, and the yellow, and show them how you can make green, show them how you can make purple, show them how you can make orange, and they'll be amazed. And even a 2-year-old would love to see these colors. Now maybe they wouldn't remember, but you know, if you do this repeatedly, you know, you'd be surprised how well 2-year-olds can pick up this stuff. I know maybe it sounds like I'm a little prejudiced, but my grandson, my 2-year-old grandson, is very bright, very smart, picks up things. I think you only have to show him one time and he picks it up. So you have to really watch around him what you do, because he is smart as a whip. Here's one. I love to do it even now. I'm 58 years old, and my granddaughter's 13, and we sometimes sit down and we do this together, but we sit and color. Just color in a coloring book. You can print things off the computer if you don't have coloring books. I don't have any here because my granddaughter is 13, so she's a little bit older. We're going through that stuff. But you that have the smaller children probably, more than likely, will have coloring books. So sit and color with them. My granddaughter, actually, when she was here, she never really colored unless I colored with her. But that was something I always liked to do. Don't ask me why. I still enjoy it now, and I don't think I'm the only one, because when I'm in the stores, I do see coloring books for, you know, adults. A little bit more complicated, but I like the simple things. So you can sit and color. I know I've mentioned read stories. Go in the tent, make the tent and read the stories. Maybe at night when it's dark, get a flashlight, make your tent, get a flashlight, get a book, go in there right before they go to bed. And that's quality time, you know. And I guess that's what I'm kind of stressing. I'm not saying you have to keep these kids busy all day long, because, you know, let's face it, we all have things we have to do to maintain the home. But, you know, take your little breaks and, you know, spend time with your children. Hot and cold. Now, that's probably not for the 2-year-old, but, you know, maybe well, we did it at 4 and 5-year-olds. You know, you would hide something, and they'd have to find it. And if they got close, you kept telling them how hot they were. If they were running, you know, walking away from it, it was cold. So you can play games like that, and your kids can play among themselves. You don't necessarily have to play with them. Of course, if you only have one child at home, I guess you're going to have to play. But if you have a couple children, that would be wonderful. Musical chairs. You know, sometimes we don't even think about the simple things here. Musical chairs is one. An obstacle course. I used to do this with my older grandsons when they would come over. I would make like a balance beam. It would only be maybe this far off the ground, so that they weren't going to hurt themselves. But you have a balance beam where they have to go across it. And maybe something where they have to put a kitchen chair where they'd have to climb underneath. Maybe something else where they'd have to climb over. You know, be creative that way. And at the preschool, when we had a real balance beam that was, you know, not very far off the ground, we would have them go forward. We would have them go across the balance beam backwards, sideways, on their knees. They love crawling on their knees. I never thought that they could do it, but the first time I seen them do that at the preschool, I was amazed that, yeah, kids can, you know, do more things than what you think. If it's nice, like today was, the sun wasn't out, but it was actually a beautifully warm day. Go outside with the ball and play soccer. You know, or play outdoor games. And I do have some that, you know, on my other list here that I will get to. I think I mentioned puzzles. If you have puzzles around, sit with your children and do puzzles. Now, the little kids, keep in mind, you're not going to grab their attention for very long. So you constantly have to be moving, you know, along. My grade was, like I said, the 4 and 5-year-olds, and we had actually 3 different classes that we would call. And there were two other teachers besides myself, and we would each take a class. And every 15 minutes we would rotate, so that I taught one particular thing, but all the kids, we'd divide the classroom up into 3 different groups, and each class, the one I would teach the same thing, but as they are rotating, they are learning 3 different things. So it's almost like school, where they're going from classroom to classroom, but yet you're not keeping them there for 45 minutes. Because let's face it, a 4-year-old is not going to sit there for 45 minutes. You have to keep it, small. So, keep in mind some of the things that I've mentioned to you, maybe even just like coloring, 10 minutes. Maybe that's their limit. If they really, like my granddaughter, she really loved to color. We would be there for half an hour, almost an hour, just coloring, and it wouldn't just be one page. It would be like, we're done. She'd do the right and I'd do the left, and then when we were done, she'd say, "You want to do another one?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So we would turn the page and find another one. So it depends on your child. You have to kind of go there. Before I get to the more constructive things to do, I wanted to tell you, I quickly looked up on the internet different games, for children, and some of them I kind of even forgot about. I had mentioned hide and go seek. I think that was the last time I mentioned it. Simon Says. That doesn't necessarily have to be outside. It can be inside if you have a hall or a staircase, play the games there, make it a little bit interesting, a little bit more challenging. Hide and seek. Parachute. I know a lot of people say, well, we don't have a parachute to use. That's more for the preschool, but be creative. How about a towel? A small blanket? If you have a small child with a receiving blanket, that would be enough. You don't have to have a big ball. If you have a little ball and you put the ball, what you do is, and you can just be between 2 people. If it's just you and you only have one child, tell them to hold on to it, the one end, and you hold on to the other, and you put the ball on it, and you just kind of bounce it. Maybe you try to bounce it up and try to catch it, and they're going to catch on. If we have the parachute and we have a lot of kids for the 4 and 5-year-olds, of course, it's a lot easier to play with more kids, but how many people out there have 10, 15, 20 kids in their house? And of course, we are not getting together with kids in the neighborhood, so we are trying to stay isolated. So, you're going to have to condense it. So you really don't need a big parachute. Like I said, a small, a bath towel, or a receiving blanket, or a small blanket that you happen to have, works just as well. For some of the older kids, Foursquare, jump rope, jacks, and if you don't happen to have jacks, there again, be creative. Use paper clips, hairpins. If you have, trying to think of some other things, money. Just, use money. That when you're throwing a ball up and you're scooping up the money. Of course, the jacks are a little bit easier. So if you can find or think of something, look around your house for something smaller that you can grab, that works too. Or, if you happen to go to the store while you're getting groceries, a lot of grocery stores do carry it. There's always a small section. I call it the junk section of the grocery store, that, when you bring your kids and you're buying all this food, they like this plastic junk that's not going to last very long. And a lot of times they'll have jacks there. And they'll have marbles too, which is the next thing that I could do. Play tag. Blind Man's Bluff, if you remember that as we were kids, where you would blindfold somebody and they had to try to catch you. You would be around them, they could hear you, they could maybe feel the wind or the, a breeze as you're running by, and play that. Red Rover. And then there was a game called Spud. And let me put my glasses on so I can read this, because I thought it was kind of neat. This game called Spud is you toss a ball up. Well, you find somebody that's it. And then you toss a ball up, or the it person tosses the ball up, and everybody runs away. And the person that's it will Oh, let me back up here. Everybody gets a number. Everybody has a particular number. So if you have 5 people playing, each one gets a number, and there's all 5. You pick a person that's it. The it person tosses the ball up, and as the ball is coming down, the it person hollers out a number, and that person who is running away from tossing the ball up, they're running away. You call their number. They have to come back and catch the ball before it bounces. I thought that was pretty neat. I've never seen that done. I've never actually played it, but I thought that was a really neat game to play. Musical chairs. A 2-year-old can play that. Play music, and maybe they don't know what you're doing, but if you do it first, if you do the music, carry your phone. Everybody has phones. Play music on your phone and then stop it, and then show them how you run to a chair. They're going to love that. Anything that gets them excited, they love to do that. Older kids, telephone line, freeze dance. Believe it or not, my 2-year-old loves to dance. You play music and he's just dancing away. I don't know if he would understand when you stop the music, you freeze. But maybe, I'm telling you, picks things up so quickly. Maybe if you stop the music and you yourself just freeze and do a funny pose, he'll catch on. So you never know. Now, I only looked up one place on the internet for this. Maybe you can look up more and get some more ideas or things that are geared to the ages of your children, because I don't know the ages of your children, but I thought those were some really neat things you could do and keep them occupied. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a constant babysitter, but every now and then say, mommy wants to play, or daddy wants to play, or after supper, just have an hour and get together and do this stuff. Now, the more constructive things that we can do while we're in this quarantine type thing, I shouldn't use the word quarantine, because we're not quarantined. We can go out to the store. We just have to try to keep our distance from people. Is take this time to organize your closet. Now, this is for the adults. And if you have older children, you can tell them, like I said before, how important this is to use this time, because they're going to get bored. Let's face it, they're off for school 2 weeks. They're going to get bored. Summertime, maybe a week into summer, when they have summer vacation, they're already bored. They want things to do. So you can organize your closets. Get rid of clothing that is too small. Go through that. Get a bag ready for Goodwill. Well, I don't use Goodwill. I use the Red Cross. I just feel the Red Cross has people's best interests at heart, where Goodwill, there is a high rate of expenses involved, so that for every dollar they make, there is a fraction, and I'm talking a small fraction. You can look it up. It's nothing that I'm making up, that actually goes back into the community. It's more for the person that owns it and the huge mansions they live in, and I just don't believe in that. But anyways, that's not what I was talking about. But go through and, get rid of the old clothing, your old shoes, old toys. Like my granddaughter's 13, and I have some dolls. She doesn't play with dolls anymore, and I have dolls that when she comes here, so she doesn't have to be dragging her toys back and forth, and they're just sitting there taking up space. And one, I can utilize that space for something else, and two, if she's not going to play with it and it's not going to mean anything for her to maybe keep for her children, let's get rid of it and give it to somebody else that would love to have a doll and maybe can't afford it, or a little bit, less fortunate as we are. So go through and do those things. Outside, you can make a game of some of the things that you're doing outside. I know it's warm, and my husband was out, I think this past last weekend it was warm, and he was picking up sticks already in our yard because, you know, we have a lot of trees in our yard, and, you know, you can't be mowing the grass with the sticks and stuff because it's just dangerous to do that. So you can make a game of that, and or have, maybe build a fire. We have a fire pit. I don't know if anybody else has a fire pit. Build a fire and cook hot dogs out there, or have a picnic. Even though it might be a little bit on the chilly side some days. I don't know, today was pretty warm. It was a little windy, but maybe you can find an area that isn't that windy and have a picnic outside. So those are some of the things that, you know, I had found. And, you know, utilize the internet. You people that are younger than me, you know your way around the internet really well, and maybe you can find some different ideas. If you don't have coloring books, you can certainly pull up things on the internet to print out and color. I'm sure you can even print out games. My granddaughter loves the hidden pictures, and I'm sure you can do that. And you know, if you don't have a book to do that, pull them off of the internet, and your kids would love to do that. So that would keep them busy. Those are just some of the ideas, and I thank my future daughter-in-law for giving me that idea. I thought about it for 2 days, and I thought, you know what, you know, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to, you know, look things up so that I can prepare you and give you some ideas that maybe you never thought of. And I'm sure once I turn this video off, I am going to see so much more, or remember, not see, but remember so much more from my preschool days that, man, that would have been really neat that I could share with you. So for now, stay safe. Try to avoid people, you know, keep your family together. Don't blow this out of proportion. This is not anything that's that dangerous. I don't believe it anyways. That's my, like I said, that's my belief. But you don't want to endanger somebody that maybe their immune system is down, and it's hitting more the sick and the elderly. So, you know, let's just try to keep our distance and hang in there. Don't get discouraged. Utilize this time at home. And if you know, need to look something up, you always have the internet. You can look so much up. So for now, like I said, stay safe. God bless, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.